Thank you. Good morning. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Steve Tuttle. I'm the chairperson of the election committee, and happy to host the second forum. All of you as association members. I want to introduce our committee. All but one are here. Evan Smith and Rick Turner will be the timekeepers today, and Steve Haviger will be doing the moderating. Mark Heinz is in Italy or somewhere. There are other members. Once we start, if you have questions that you want to write on the cards are over on the table. Feel free to write a question. May not be able to get them all in. Do the best we can. We do have a number of questions that are already pre-selected. I want to thank the members of the election committee for the work throughout this year as we've worked to bring greater transparency to the election process, and we've worked pretty hard to revise Resolution M06, which controls the guide election process. The entire election committee, you may not know, is brand new this year. None of us have ever served on an election committee before, and so we've been on a pretty steep learning curve as a committee in running the election and preparing everything for the election coming up. Our board liaison is Rick Trendick, and he's attended almost all of our meetings and has been valuable to us as a committee as we've journeyed through this year together. So I just want to publicly thank the committee for their work and also to Rick Trendick. There's a handout that we put over there with pictures of the candidates. You'll notice there's 5 on there. One of them dropped out. Brenda dropped out after we printed that document, so rather than print a whole bunch of new ones, we are using the same ones. So, thank you for coming. We're glad you're here. We also welcome those watching on Channel 78 and those who will watch through the computer, Ustream, or some other means. I would ask that you silence your cell phones for the forum. In the interest of saving time, we ask that you don't applaud after candidates make comments. Also, we're really here to listen to the candidates and to hear from them, so please, if you avoid communication with your neighbors, that can be really disruptive to the crowd inside. The candidates this morning are seated in random order. I realize that's a bit of a change, but we're trying to just mix it up a little bit and not have a pattern where everybody follows the same person after every comment. Each candidate will give a 3-minute opening statement, again in random order, and they'll have 3-minute closing statements as well. Questions for the forum have been collected in a variety of ways. One thing we're doing different this time is we've asked each candidate to submit 3 questions they would like to have asked, and we have selected a number of those out of the 12 that were submitted. There's been several questions submitted by email, as well as questions that we're writing down today. No one other than the election committee, the 4 of us, have seen the questions prior to today, so all candidates will be responding without knowing ahead of time what the questions are. So with that, we're going to get started.
Thank you, Steve. I have 4 cards here. Each card has the name of a candidate. I'm going to randomize the drawing. So both opening statements, questions, and the closing statements will be done randomly. So this is another change from last time. So trying to give everybody a fair chance to be first and last. Each question will be limited to 2 minutes. And at the end of the 4 people or candidates responding to the topic, each candidate in turn will be offered a 1-minute opportunity to provide a response. Again, that's a change from the last forum that we had. So let's get right to it. For opening statements, the order will be Marty, then Doug, then Nicole, and then Colette. So first up for opening statements, Marty.
Should we use a podium, I suppose?
Please. And microphone should be on.
Test. Test.
No.
Yep.
That was on. There you go. You got the red light.
Most of you already know me, Marty Clark. I live at 855 Ocean Parkway. Been there since '92. Been a member of Ocean Pines Association since 1977. Full-time resident since '92. Raised two wonderful daughters here. My wife raised two wonderful daughters here. And conducted my business, which is a real estate development and construction business since '86, 3 years times. I won't bore you. I mean, I've served on a lot of advisory committees going back to '88. Served on a couple of grassroots civic organizations. I see people in the room and served with on those. Stop and breathe. I was elected as the director first time in 2007, again in 2015. If I'm elected to this board again, my goal is going to be pretty much the same as it's been in the past. Promote a conservative, zero-based budget that sets the tone for the operations of the reasonable reserves. And when I say reasonable reserves, we're sitting on $9 million right now. I don't think that's reasonable. It's scary. And I want to try, for the first time in years, to run our amenities with common sense in a business like that. And I think that opening a yacht club in wintertime, lose $300,000 doesn't make a whole lot of business sense. Appreciate your vote. Appreciate you being here today. Thanks to the committee, too.
Thank you, Marty. Next up is Doug.
Good morning, everyone. And I also want to take time to thank everybody for taking time out of their day to come here and listen to the candidates and issues that are going to be quite important. I'd also like to thank the committee. Everyone's done a great job in creating an environment for everybody to understand the election process and forward. There was a sitting director in the first forum. I had mentioned the fact that we'd accomplished enough the placement of the amenities, and we chose a renovation in order to save a lot of money for the membership. Renovation was a smart way to go. We now have functioning. And they functioning properly? No, not yet. Give them an opportunity to do so. The bridges, the golf course, the yacht club. I'm still going to call it the yacht club. I know it's the Cove, but to see the district more comfortable with the yacht club.
Just a little bit. I'm having trouble hearing.
So,
That's it. Much better. That's better.
very good. Thank you for that. The other part of it is that I mentioned last time is we need to look forward. We need to understand where we need to go. We can rely on our previous accomplishments, but that's not a long-term plan. We need to look at how we can become more accountable to membership and do the kinds of things that are proper for the longevity of the Ocean Pines Association. One of the things that's in front of us that I'm happy to report is almost in conclusion as bringing a new GM. That is something that I would take personal responsibility for not moving forward in a more expeditious manner to get that done. The board had got mired in understanding the importance of getting some of the other things done, and we let that go. I will take responsibility for that along with the rest of the board. But we now have someone that is eminent. I have all the details right now, but having addressed that process myself, I know we are. The operations of the Cove, the yacht club, whatever you want to call it, the operations really need to be addressed. I would agree with Marty, and I suspect most people would say we are bound by resolutions to run that environment business-like manner. Consideration has to be given for other options that would prevent kind of losses that we've seen in the past several years. Now, whether it's closing the yacht club during the summer, during the off-season months, or leasing it out to another entity, those things need to be discussed, need to be decided the end of the day, we need to have an environment that meets the requirements of this organization without a financial burden associated. The other thing that really needs to be involved from a community perspective is a long-term capital improvement plan. We do have a lot of money in the reserves. We really need to understand how best to spend that money or preserve that money for long-term use. So an understanding of where we are in the capital improvement plan is a very important aspect of where we are. Effective budget planning and those kinds of things go hand in hand. An understanding of how we can make the new GM a successful individual is another thing that's important. I will work on that.
Thank you, Doug. Nicole.
Morning. Thank you all for coming, and thanks to the election committee for setting everything up for us. Since living here at the age of 5, and for the most part of my life, I have been able to experience the community firsthand every age thus far. If you ask anyone that knows me, you'll hear about my extensive work ethic and drive, paired with my when there's a will, there's a way kind of mentality. I'm an optimist, but a realist, and I seek productivity in every entry of my life. If elected, I would carry those attributes with me and in everything I do and I put my energy into. My first priority if elected, I would help with the training and kind of like the transition to the new general manager. And I want to address the yacht club. I'm really for keeping it open and maybe giving some specials throughout the week like the other restaurants do. Try to see that will drive more people in. And then also maintaining, I want to personally do replacing of like the mailboxes and some like the infrastructures that have been needing some work for quite some time. I would also like to if you vote for me, you get someone who is honest and has no hidden agenda. For someone who is here for the long haul, I can also strategize for long-term goals as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Colette.
Good morning. I also want to thank Steve and the Elections Committee and thank all of you for coming in this morning, listening to us. What I am struck by is that things have gotten pretty wild looking at the Bayside Gazette forum. There's some pretty incendiary stuff being put out there. Concerned. Thinking about removing a director, is that justified or is that indifference for speaking out? And we need to look at that. I got threatened last night for running for the board at the Southside Grill. Guy said he hadn't seen me around. I guess he thinks I have the street cred to run for. I would say I have the rat. Things need to settle down. Some people have told me that there's a thought out there that putting doctor on campaign materials means that I'm not making. Well, I think a lot of you know that I've been a child psychologist for over 30 years, and I can tell you, being a child psychologist, there's no room for uppity. Kids don't leave any room for pretentiousness. So my title doesn't mean that I'm any smarter than the next guy. What it does tell you is that I have some training and some expertise that maybe can help settle things down and help set us on a path toward a productive future. My title tells you that I have 22 years of school to learn what I need to do a job. I have 2,000 hours of internship training to make sure that I know what I do. I have 3 days each year of continuing education to make sure that I stay current in my field. What we need right now is somebody who is trained to help settle things down and to be a moderator on our board. We need somebody to help identify the lessons learned so that we can move forward and set our ship. One of the things that my profession requires is training in law and ethics. What this means is that we need to put front and center an alertness to harm that comes from conflict, dual roles, and limits to competence. We need that. My clinical and research training is all about learning to do your homework before you make decisions or before you send up. We all want a zero-based budget here, and we need to do the homework to make sure that we stay there. My training also helps me recognize shoddy homework when I see it, and I think we've had some shoddy And I think that has put us in some financial peril. So if you think that our board needs somebody trained to help settle things down and to go forward with a focus on lessons learned, I ask you to vote. Thank you.
Now we'll move to the questions. Just to reiterate, randomize the board candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and then each candidate will have 1 minute to offer a response if they want to. So the order for the first question will be Colette, then Doug, then Marty, and then Nicole. And the first question, ladies and gentlemen, is provide your definition of oversight by the board as it relates to the general manager of the association. So first is Colette.
It's not on. Not on. It turns off by itself. Okay. Right for me to start talking. Okay. My view of oversight, I guess, encompasses a couple of things. One is to make sure that we address those ethical issues that I talked about earlier. We need to make sure that we have a general manager who, doesn't have conflicts of interest, doesn't slip into dual roles, and is able to make decisions that we can trust are objective and based on the best interests of our community. The other thing that the board needs to focus on is that we have given our general manager clear direction, and that's on us. We need to define the problem clearly and carefully after thorough thought, thorough discussion of different points of view, and then we need to give our general manager a direction as to what we want accomplished. We also need to watch that in the implementation of our direction, and we need to make sure that the actions that the general manager is taking are consistent with what we expect and consistent with what we direct him or her to do. So I guess that pretty well sums up my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. Doug?
A couple of things come to mind. For one, through the bylaws, the general manager serves at the pleasure of the board of directors. It's the only employee. I think the balance that has to be struck is between the board acting as a policy-making entity and the board micromanaging the general manager. Either one of those parameter ends are not going to result in success. It's got to be a balance between both. And how do you achieve that balance? Number one, you bring on somebody that has the kind of experience to run an association, that understands amenities, that understands roads, that understands the staffing required to run a public works department, and all of those things combined allow that individual to succeed. The second part of it is a sound business plan. Going about things aimlessly and reacting to things that happen is not really a plan for success. Part of that balance is to work with the GM and say, where are the kinds of things that you see from your expertise that need immediate attention and that need long-term attention, and then build that partnership between the board and the GM so that he or she could succeed in doing that. The sound business plan needs to be addressed, and that balance of not micromanaging the GM, but making sure that that communication between the GM and the board is established on a regular basis so no one gets any surprises, we don't get an opportunity to go off the rails, there aren't any inconsistencies with that operation. Those kinds of things from an oversight perspective, I think, is what the board absolutely needs to do. Again, no micromanaging, no far away, beyond arm's reach of the general manager. It's that balance in between to make sure that communication continues and that everybody's heading in the same direction.
Thank you, Doug. Marty?
I hate to ask, can you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. Provide your definition of oversight by the board as it relates to the general manager of the association.
Well, the way it works is the board sets policy. You hire a general manager to execute that policy. The way the current restrictions on that are set up is pretty much okay in my mind as long as they're followed. And I think if anybody looked at management policy in Ocean Pines, it took me 2 days to find it to help the party. Sorry. There are plenty of safeguards in place to keep that the way it's supposed to be.
I can't hear you.
Board writes policy, general manager executes policy. If he doesn't execute the policy, good luck. I mean, that's just the way it gets set up. It's the way it's worked. It's supposed to work. That's how I understand the question.
Thank you. Nicole?
I think the board's supposed to be responsible for accountability for the general manager. I think they also need to have goals set up front so they know what the goals are and how to reach those goals. Also work more with the board where they can kind of discuss different strategies. Just having one more person, one more head, kind of working up ideas. I think that'd be a good idea for hiring and training and developing other managers. So kind of giving that assist because we don't know, they can have strengths and weaknesses just as well as you or I can. So I think just figuring out what those are with the new general manager would be beneficial. And the last thing is bonuses. I think setting bonuses based on budget makes no sense because how do we know that the budget is where it's supposed to be? We did the same as we did last year. We're not really moving forward. We're just staying in the same place that we are. So I think having bonuses based on maybe how much income is generated from those amenities may put a little skin in the game for that general manager. Maybe, I don't say it very bluntly, but just kind of make them care a little more. If their salary is dependent on it, they may, take it a little more to heart as we all do. So.
Thank you, Colette. Now, each candidate will be offered 1 minute to provide a response if you'd like to. In the same, Colette, you.
The only response that I'd like to make is that I just wanted to build on that idea of the bonus. I think bonus based on the budget is a habit. I think bonuses need to be based on performance, how faithfully the general manager is executing goals, the policies that have been set by the board, and I think that's been a big problem in the past. I was pretty concerned. I think there were a lot of people that maybe disagreed with the performance of the previous GM, but it seemed kind of foolhardy that all of a sudden, he's gotten a bonus, but then he's fired. So that doesn't make sense to me. I think that there are problems with performance. Problems need to be addressed at the time they're happening. Let's not spring any surprises on anybody, and remove a manager without a plan in place for what we're going to do for him.
Thank you, Colette. Doug?
I'd like to pick up on Colette's point that she mentioned earlier about lessons learned. And I think it's very important in the context of the topic of bonus. I will tell you that the lessons learned from the previous GM, the contractual arrangements that were made, were certainly taken into consideration by the board. I could probably say that the same conditions and employment contract bonuses included are not part of what the board thought was appropriate to offer as a package for the new general manager. So the lessons learned are actually being, in some cases, applied. I think it is important to make sure that you bring on somebody who has the best interests of running the association, not necessarily, to try to better it. I think the combination of the board and the GM works to that end. But this individual is charged with the operational environment. I think it's important that that's the genesis of how he or she becomes a good general manager, and bonus is not really one that I'd be interested in. But the lessons learned are there. I can trust me. Got that covered.
Thank you, Doug. Marty?
Just real quick, the board can delegate authority to the general manager, not responsibility. It's the board's responsibility. If they're not doing their due diligence and care, shame on them. It comes back to the board, not the general manager.
Thank you, Marty. Pass. Thank you. Just this for the second question. So the order order on this question will be Doug, then Nicole, then Colette, and then Marty. What is the first thing you wish to accomplish if you are elected? Doug?
I think it's quite an easy one. Based on all of the controversy, all of the conditions that exist right now, is to bring a level of stability back to the board. I've been the one that has been in the middle of all these things. I'm the one that has offered consensus to try to get board members on each side of the issue to consider alternatives that would allow them to, quite frankly, stop all of the unproductive time that's been spent on arguing their position. All right? Have I been successful? Obviously not. Will I continue to try? You bet I will. That's the one thing that has pushed me not only in my professional career, but now seems to be very applicable in the role as a sitting director, trying to understand how best to move forward. Time needs to be spent on issues, things that affect the association membership, not on settling arguments between factions on the board. Quite frankly, I'm tired of spending that kind of time. That's not what I signed up for. I signed up to help what I can do this constituency here. Quite frankly, I'm not spending enough time doing that. So the first thing I would do is make sure that we bring that harmony back to the board. If it requires drastic action, then so be it. But at this point, time spent on the board needs to be benefit of the membership, and that's the first thing I want to do.
Thank you, Doug. Nicole?
The first thing I would do is work with the general manager and help them hire a new food and beverage manager, train, develop, create a team to be successful in our amenities, and then kind of look forward to the next season. And Marty actually just provided me like a breakdown of what the yacht club does every month, and just trying to kind of assess it by month rather than by year. That way we know what seasons we need to make the changes, and then also work closely with the general manager, going over those goals. That way we could have a plan to.
Thank you. Marty?
Hard to change. I mean, I've already said it a dozen times. My first motion is going to be to ask the general manager to provide the board with the cost of the yacht club open versus closed in the off-season. Put a moratorium on booking events in the yacht club next off-season until the board has an opportunity to look at those costs. I think the cost is staggering, and I think it should be closed. That's just me, but I want the rest of the board to see the numbers. I think once they do, I think it's going to get shuttered. That's my first step. So what I already promised, I won't change. Thanks.
Thank you, Marty. Each of the candidates in turn will be offered a chance for. I apologize. Yes, of course. I'm sorry.
You must be hanging out with that guy.
No, not a bad. I just got ahead of myself. I apologize. Let me go right ahead. Thank you.
I believe that the first thing that needs to happen is we need to settle things down. Emotions have taken over on the board. We need to get back to doing business that the board was elected to do. And then we need to move toward looking at lessons learned. One of the big lessons that I think I take away from this chaos that's happening right now is, the board needs to listen to all voices. We need to quit silencing dissent. We need to do our homework by considering different points of view, thoroughly discussing things, and making sure that we're not going for the easy, quick solution. The yacht club is a big priority for me. I firmly disagree with closing it in the winter months. I believe that the financial picture can be improved by making sure we get professionals in there running. I think if we solve that problem, the winter is going to take care of itself. I think if we bring cool heads and creative thinking to these problems, we'll be able to come up with solutions that you at home perhaps with surgery.
Thank you, Colette. So now, each candidate in turn will be offered an opportunity for 1 minute response if you'd like to do so. Doug?
Pass.
Pass, thank you. Nicole?
Pass.
Pass, thank you. Marty? Pass. And Colette?
Yeah.
Thank you. All good on that. Okay. This next question will be in the order of Nicole, then Colette, then Marty, and then Doug. What is your position on the action of the Board of Directors regarding the adults-only designation at the yacht club? Please discuss options to respond in the opinion there is a violation that needs to be addressed.
Could you read it one more time?
Certainly. What is your position on the action of the Board of Directors regarding the adults-only designation of the yacht club swimming pool? Please discuss options to respond in the event that the opinion is that there is a violation that needs to be addressed. Nicole is first.
From my understanding, we are, well, it was not on. Thank you. The Fair Housing Act states that we aren't able to discriminate, to not allow every, gender and age resident into the pool. So I think that wasn't really a choice that the board made. It's more of like something we had to do to avoid any kind of lawsuit. And it is. So with saying that, it's just not going to be, for me, it's not going to be a done deal. I really am trying to look into finding a different solution. I'm not sure if this is legally possible, but my goal is to try to break up, maybe have 2 different pool memberships. If that's something that we can kind of get around the law to make it fair, to have 2 separate prices for pool memberships, one being an adult pool and the rest being family pools. That's something that could possibly work out. That would be my suggestion and solution. That I think that would make everybody happy. So.
Thank you, Nicole. Next is Colette.
I think we have 2 issues here. One is transparency, and the other one is fairness. The transparency issue comes from the fact that distrust of the board, the objectivity of the board's decisions, and the objectivity of acting general manager has caused us to question the motives and question background of this decision. We're going to have to address that transparency and the trust issue going forward as a board. As far as the pool itself, there are some legal issues here that we can't ignore. The Fair Housing Act creates in ADA created families, as well as people with disabilities as protected classes for protection and fair housing. But in 1990 or 92, the Americans with Disabilities Act was also providing some protections for disabilities. I think that the intents of both of these laws need to be balanced and considered coming up with a solution to this problem. I think there are a couple of several, maybe options that we could consider. I think it's going to require some creativity by both the attorney who's giving us some advice as well as the board. One thing is to put in place rules that ensure safety for adults who need a safe place to swim. People have talked about creating a separate club. I'm not sure that's going to be feasible or doable. But a third option may be to combine the Oasis and the Pumpkins Landing pools and the Tiki Bar into a complex that serves adults and families. And maybe we could address the needs of both groups in that kind of a fashion. Kind of facing the fact that the Yacht Club Oasis pool was not really built for children in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. Next up is Marty.
The 1964 Civil Rights Act, as it was amended in 1988, Fair Housing Act, makes the board's unanimous vote to come into compliance an absolute no-brainer. Anybody that's read the law will understand that you cannot discriminate against families with children. Any more than you can discriminate against people because of the color of their skin or the religion that they have to practice. End of story. They had no choice. Are there any options? I can't find one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Please.
If you recall the special meeting that was held sometime ago regarding announcement that the Sunday Family Fun Night was being proposed, you'll recall that I was the one that brought up the motion to maintain the Oasis pool as an adults-only pool. Soon thereafter, we were counseled by our attorney that we were indeed in violation of not only the Fair Housing Act, but several Maryland anti-discrimination laws. This is on advice from counsel at the time. We wanted to make sure that looked at every option, including were there any exceptions ever granted, were there any other conditions that could come about that would allow us to maintain the adults-only status. But the attorney did a lot of research in that regard, came back with the fact that there were no exceptions at this point. At that point, we decided, you know what, we can no longer keep the association at risk by continually violating the law. As evidenced by a unanimous vote of the board, the importance of protecting the association from potential lawsuits and fines that could total tens of thousands of dollars, to me, it was very prudent for us to make sure that we protected the association by complying with the law. Now, that being said, one of the things I would like to look at is, are there any potential options? Should we just stop there? The answer is no. We have continued discussion. Will it end up in us returning to an adults-only status? I don't know. It won't be because we didn't try to continue to have those discussions. Privatization has been considered. How actually that works, I don't know, but it was a general comment that was made. Remember, we also have to keep our tax-exempt status, so these kinds of things would have a residual effect on the association. So careful thought needs to be given to this. I think we owe the association continued research into this, but at this point, following the law, and that's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Doug. Now, each candidate will be offered a 1-minute response if you would like. And first up is Cole.
I just wanted to verify off of what Colette was saying. I wanted to make sure that I was clear. I wanted to use one of the outstanding pools, maybe have it, or even bring in maybe another company to have it be a business and maybe use that facility as a different membership since it would not be under our direct supervision. That makes sense. It'd be a separate membership. It'd be a separate facility. It would be its own business, but at least it would. It's the only way I can think to kind of go around. Thank you.
Thank you. Colette?
The only thing that I would say is that we're not going to be able to get around the law. What we need to do is make sure that both protected classes and needs are considered in whatever solution we come up with. And I think there are some options out there.
Thank you, Colette. Marty? Pass. Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, one thing, and I don't know if it was Colette or Nicole mentioned it, the issue of safety. I think really where we have an opportunity, because it's a new condition for the lifeguards and the management of the Oasis pool, to really make sure that they comply with the laws. We've not had a situation where you've got that disparity in age sharing the same proximity in the water. So things like running, things like throwing balls across it. We have to, and I know Colby will take care of this, and that she's already alluded to the fact that she is aware of this. And I think special attention needs to be paid to that. They have to have a little more wherewithal to ensure that the kinds of things that were normally done in a pool need to be, I don't want to use the word control, but need to be monitored closely. I think behavior has to be in participation and as a partnership rather than the sort of indiscriminate play that could put some people in danger and so on and so forth. I think making sure that the operation of the pool is consistent with that is the right thing to do.
Thank you. The order for the next question, Marty first, then Nicole, then Doug, and then Colette. And the question is, OPA bylaws allow for the removal of a director. You are well aware that there is a motion proposed for the next regular BOD meeting to remove a current director. In your opinion, what requirements must be met to remove a director from the board? Marty?
Now, you're referencing the bylaws, which I think the question is 5 votes. If the board's removed, if the membership's removed, it's a really, really difficult thing to do. I've never liked it, but I think it's based on Maryland's law, corporate law. It's about impossible for, if all of us decided we want to get rid of a director, it's a really high bar. But for the board of directors, 5 votes and cause. Cause is not defined. I think cause ought to be staggering. But I don't know. I haven't been in the closed meetings. I don't know what the cause is. I mean, I have some feeling for it. You know, whispers and gabs. Anybody that sat at a bar in Ocean Pines in the last 3 weeks has heard 35, everything from this to that. But until I hear the cause, I can't tell you whether it's. But I don't think that our bylaws makes cause a very high bar. With 5 votes, it's adios. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Nicole?
I think the number was in the thousands, wasn't it? 3,000 to 4,000 homeowners. I think like a petition in order to remove one board member, which I think would be very difficult. And then the majority board vote, which would be, I guess, the 5.50. I'm still learning myself. And same thing as Marty said, we're not really sure all the different details, but these are like the bylaws. As I know it, this is how I understand it. So either board majority or several thousand votes or petition from homeowners themselves, and they bring it to the board.
Thank you, Nicole. Doug?
Being in somewhat of a precarious position regarding this question, I would just say that unfortunately, and I know I'll get hammered for this, and you know what? It's okay. When you make a claim to hold in confidence information that's relevant to legal action, I will abide by it. And I will not compromise my integrity to do anything else. So if that costs me votes, so be it. Now, why do we have the ability to remove a director? I thought about this because I've been thinking about this issue for quite some time, and quite frankly, I'm struggling because there are conditions that I would agree that would set a bad precedent. If the board majority decides they don't like a director that was elected by the community, that's a bad precedent to set. All right, and so the bar better be pretty darn high to the level of criminal activity. Anything short of that is suspect. Anything short of that is conjecture. Anything short of that is politicizing the issue. Now, that being said, we also have to question why is in our bylaws there are terms and conditions to handle this condition. Because the possibility does exist that a condition with egregious, perhaps criminal behavior that could damage the association could possibly exist. So it's a protection mechanism, right? And it should be treated as a protection mechanism and not as a political statute or a political stance on something, all right? I don't have an answer for it. That bar should be set very high and should not be some cavalier approach to pushing one's agenda forward, all right? It is a tough decision. I am not happy and I am not looking for sympathy. I am not happy that I'm in this position. Quite frankly, I've got a better solution, and we'll leave it at that.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Colette?
So I agree with the other speakers that there's a concern that cause is not defined by laws. And I agree that cause needs to be an egregious act, not just to silence dissent, to silence differences of opinion. It needs to be something that is so egregious as to be criminal, possibly. And that the bar for proof of the commission of that act also has to be set very high. I think one of the things that has gotten us in the position we're in right now is that when problems have occurred or behavior has occurred that maybe was questionable with respect to ethics, of confidentiality, they weren't addressed when they should have been addressed. And if people are violating confidentiality or putting their noses where they don't belong, that needs to be addressed when it happens. We don't want to store that stuff up and then decide when it's maybe politically expedient or expedient for some other reason to go straight to a vote of removal. You know, I think that's wrong. I think we need to make sure that the cause is clear, the actions have been proven, and that the actions are so egregious that removal is the only way that we can protect the association.
Thank you, Colette. And now each candidate will be offered 1 minute to provide a response if they desire. Marty,
Yeah.
please use the microphone for the audience that's not here. Virtual audience.
Just for the interest of the subject, clause is really in the bylaws and set pretty darn low. Don't show up for 3 meetings. And be late in your not paying your dues. It's a pretty low bar. I don't see anything criminal, but it is spelled out in there.
Thank you, Marty. Nicole? Pass. Thank you. Doug? Pass. Pass. Thank you. Colette?
Pass.
Pass. Thank you. Shuffle these again. And the order for this next question will be Doug, then Colette, then Nicole, and then Marty. There's been concerns expressed by association members about public versus association-only use of amenities. What are your views on restricting amenities to association members and guests only? Doug first.
Yeah, very, very good question. I like this kind of debate. Let's look at it from a financial perspective. I think one of the things that we would owe the membership and should really provide to the membership in order to continue this kind of discussion is how much of the revenue is made up from the public use of these amenities, right? That should be a good starting point where we look and say, is it 10% of the revenue? Is it 85% of the revenue? I think those kinds of things would lend themselves to discussion. Quite frankly, I think there's a lot further discussion that would have to happen, and I believe this is a wonderful topic to have the entire association weigh in on, because I think people have, a sense that are we an HOA that has that, that exclusivity of use of the amenities, and is that a smart thing to do? I mean, we pay for these amenities, should we have the right to use them exclusively? Good question. I would love to have a debate on that and really solicit input from the membership to say, what do you think about this? At the end of the day, should we decide that it's going to be us only use? How does that affect the financial aspect of it? How does it affect the assessment? We need to ask those questions as well. I think it would be a really, really interesting debate, and I think there's some data there that would help everybody try to decide what's important in the long run. I certainly love to engage in this kind of conversation.
Thank you, Doug. Colette?
I also like this question. For one reason, I'm a user of the boat launch, and I've always wondered whose trailers are in the parking lot when I can't find the spot. What I think we need is to get data on the use. Who's using these amenities and where are these revenues coming from? I don't think it would be difficult to get that data. We started putting swipe cards in places, and I think if we have member swipe cards that give access to amenities and non-member swipe cards, we can get the data that we need on use as well as on revenues. And I think we need to use data to drive the decision about whether we want to continue to open amenities up to the public. If there's some amenities we want to keep more private, want to, open up and make public. I think we need to use data as a big part of the decision-making process. But I also think we need input from users, resident users, homeowners, so that we make sure that the homeowners' interests come first in these decisions, and that the homeowners' interests are served in how access to amenities is decided.
Thank you, Colette. Nicole?
I agree with looking at the public versus association use. If it would be of value to you to maybe pay less of a annual membership in order to sacrifice maybe having a longer wait at the tiki bar, or maybe having more people at the pool. For swipe cards, a lot of people share those, so sometimes the data may not be as accurate because you're going to let your friend use it, you're going to let your brother use it, you're going to let anyone. It's just a swipe card, it's just a swipe card. Also, if people can have guests, how many guests are they bringing? That kind of falls along the line of public, even though they're with somebody, and I think it has to be outweighed with how much, if it's worth the amount of money we're going to get out of it, and figure out what the value is, and if that value is, if it makes sense for everybody, us as a community, to kind of share, I guess you could say. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Marty?
I chase these numbers as hard as anybody, and I can't find anywhere where we say as an organization, outside sales gain us X. We did it for aquatics once, budget and finance, and it was really quite unbelievable how little money we actually end up with. And I just don't think there's enough juice to make it worth the squeeze. I kind of like when I bought here, and my friends who didn't live here used to go, ooh, it's nice. But when they wanted to play golf in Ocean Ponds, they had to buy a membership lot. Does anybody remember that? If you want to go to the swimming pool, what'd you do? You bought a membership lot. And there's some exclusivity to that, and it increases home value. Let's all go this afternoon when we're done here. Let's go on over to Riddle Farm and hang around there. Yeah, you got the passcode, you don't come in. We keep saying, well, we need the money. I don't think there's any money in the deal. But I don't know that. But I'd like to find out. Thanks.
Thank you, Marty. And now for opportunity for a 1-minute response to candidates. So, Doug.
Yeah, Marty, good point. But I think it's the discussion and the gathering of that information warrants, further, attention. I really think it's a good question to have. We're speculating that we don't know exactly what amount of money is contributed by public use of our amenities. I think we should find that out. I think it's a good academic discussion to see if we should take it any further. So I'd be all for putting forth an effort to get that information and get that information in front of the members so that we can all realize if it's a good thing or a bad thing to take on.
Thank you. Colette?
Yeah, I think this is a good example of decisions based on opinions versus data. And I think we could have 8,000 different opinions about any one of these questions. And that's not gotten us very far. I do believe there's a way to get some data to decide this issue. I agree we need to get that data out from the association so that the association can give us in on, what does the data tell them? And does it justify continuing the practice of outside use, or does it justify closing that down for some amenities or all amenities? As far as Nicole's comments about the swipe cards being given to guests or family members, I consider my guests family members. I consider, grandchildren, children, my sister and brother-in-law who come here twice a year to visit me from California. I consider those the same as me.
Thank you, Nicole.
I just wanted to clarify one thing as far as renters go. Weekly renters, summer rentals, and yearly renters, I think they have more of like a public use. Maybe we would gain more of our money from like the yacht club, for instance, in the summertime because they're in that like vacation mode. They're going out all the time, and I don't know where that would draw a line between having them as actual residents or having them as public.
They're residents.
All right, thank you. Marty?
Actually, they're neither. What they are is they're associate members. Renters are associate members. They have access to our members. That's right in the bylaws. I just want to, 2011 is when this changed. And the truth is, the board majority, the general manager at the time, really believed that if we said everything is open to everybody in the county, that the county was going to write us a big fat check. It never happened.
Thank you, Marty. Our next question is one that's been submitted this morning. Just to remind everybody, there are cards over on the table by the door. And if you've got a question you'd like to pose, please write it down and give it to Steve Tuttle over here. We're trying to blend in as many of them as we can. The order for this question for answers will be Colette, followed by Doug, followed by Nicole, followed by Marty. And the question is, again, along the lines of amenities. Currently, many amenities in the Ocean Pines are basically on an a la carte basis, where you pay individually. What are your thoughts on including all amenities in the annual assessment? And again, Colette is.
I am not in favor of including all the amenities in the assessment. I like the a la carte status. I think that serves the needs of a lot of people. Maybe use only one or two of the amenities, maybe one or two that are less costly to maintain. I think it helps keep our assessments low, and it helps us be in control of the choice of how we spend our money on amenities. So I like that, and I would like to see it continue.
Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, interestingly enough, last year I had this very same conversation with someone and I really took it to heart when they said, why would I want to pay for something that I'm not going to use? That means I'm subsidizing for else. And I think that's an important aspect of it. One could go around and say, wow, we can actually make it easy, increase the assessment by X number of dollars, and everybody comes in and does what they want. But I would strongly oppose that, because I think people do really want to get some value out of their investment in an amenity that they want to use. So having someone who doesn't play golf subsidize the golf course is not going to endear themselves to the increase, in the assessment. So I'm a strong advocate of keeping the a la carte approach, pricing it appropriately, because I think from a community perspective, let's not forget, it is the association membership we are serving. That's the people that I need to listen to that say, I'm not going to pay for an amenity that I'm not going to use, and I will support.
Thank you, Doug. Nicole?
I am too in favor of the a la carte that we currently have. I think that maybe even having like group packaging, like say you wanted, majority of the amenities, or maybe you wanted all of them, maybe we could provide some kind of discount, have all of them, make it a little more affordable. But I think it doesn't make sense, if I don't go to the pool, I would have to pay for membership.
Thank you, Nicole. Marty?
I would need a whole lot more information before I answer that question. I'd like to know, how much is it going to cost? Last year we paid $921. Probably could have gotten away at $821 if it's just as healthy financially, but we paid $921. Is it gonna go to 1,500? You know, if I wanna play golf, I reach in my pocket and go play golf. Unfortunately, I don't play golf here very often. There's reasons. And I hear that a lot, but I don't hear it a lot. There's reasons. The point I'm trying to make is it's a choice matter, I think. But if it was $1,000, it included everything, well, yeah, sure. I don't think it would be.
Thank you. And now each candidate in turn will be afforded 1 minute for response if they'd like to. First is Colette.
The only thing I want to respond to is the, could have gotten by with 821 instead of 920. That would have put us 800,000 further in the hole this year. I would not be in favor of that.
Thank you, Colette. Doug?
Pass.
Pass. Nicole? Pass. Marty?
What 800,000? We have, the budget year doesn't end until another, 9 months?
Okay, thank you. I'll randomize these, and we have another question here which has come from the audience this morning. Several of the candidates have identified reserves. Regarding reserves, do you think there is enough or not enough, or just the right amount? The order here will be Colette, then Nicole, then Marty, and then Doug. So, Colette?
I think the amount of reserves that we need is a little bit out, up for discussion at this point. We have a committee working on the capital improvement plan, and I think we need to, let them do their work and come back to us with numbers. There are quite a few projects that were put on hold this year that maybe needed to be worked on, one of which is the drainage. I know drainage is a big issue. There are quite a few homeowners. There are homeowners who are having trouble with their bulkheads being breached. There are some serious infrastructure issues that we address. And I wouldn't want to make a major adjustment in reserves without having current data on what projects are upcoming that we need to address. I believe that we need to certainly have a baseline of replacement reserves as our insurance policy against any kind of natural disaster that could occur. We don't want to find ourselves in a position of needing to borrow money to respond to a natural disaster when the whole rest of the Eastern Seaboard is competing for those same borrowed dollars, because those borrowed dollars are going to be a lot more expensive at that point.
Thank you, Colette. Nicole?
I think there's too much money in the reserve. But I also think I'm not really super familiar with the price of the upcoming projects that we have, such as like the Police Buildings Association or the admin building and the Northgate Bridge. Without knowing those numbers, we don't really know how, we don't know how much it's going to cost. We don't really know how much we're going to have left over. But funding for those projects, which I'm assuming the board is doing, so we would have plenty of money for that. As far as like any kind of natural disaster, insurance should take care of the majority of that. So we'd have to use our funds for that.
Thank you, Nicole. Marty?
Short answer, yes. Plenty of money. We got $9,090,592 of your money in the bank, earning less than 1%. What? What do we need $9 million for? We've never spent more than $3 million in a given year that I can think of. Maybe New York pushed in 3.2 or something. I hear about natural disasters. How come we pay insurance premiums? Read your bylaws. It's the board's duty to cover that in insurance. So we pay a fortune in insurance. This kind of reserve balance is dangerous. If you don't think it's dangerous, think about the time we almost bought a golf course. It wasn't in the budget. We could go on and on and on. We need to fund depreciation like we have for 45 years, and not the 5-year funding plan that was funded for the last 9. This is the result of the 5-year funding plan going 9. $9 million. We may have more money than Calvin B. Taylor.
Thank you, Marty. Doug?
Hopefully he's not listening right now, Marty. I think, when you look at the current reserve balance and you factor in the fact that we've done a number of renovations to the major facility, I think that's really where a lot of the spend go. Now, let's not lose sight of the fact that part of the asset list includes things in this building, smaller cost items that we absolutely need to account for. There is a move afoot right now. I think they're running DBA to do another reserve study, or we're revising the reserve study because the asset list has changed. But I think that being said, it's not going to change the risk position that we have going forward very much. $9 million in the bank really is more than adequate to cover what I see as the short-term and mid-term type things we have to have that we would fund with reserves. I think the capital improvement plan is one of the things that needs to be developed so to give us a better idea of currently where our major assets stand and our minor assets stand, the product life of those assets, and from there we can build an appropriate assessment to fund the reserves right now. Right now we are more than adequate with reserve funding. Now, should we abandon funding that? No, not at all. We need to fund it at the right level, and I think the CIP that's well thought out and the update of the asset list for the OPA assets really drive where that reserve balance should be. But for right now, with the current balance, I think we are at no risk and quite frankly can survive. That may not be the right word, but I think we're in a very good position with regard to protecting the assets long term.
Thank you, Doug. Each candidate will now be offered 1 minute to respond if they choose. First is Colette.
I just want to respond to the issue of funding for depreciation versus replacement. Depreciation really gives us the amount of money that those items cost when they were first put in place. The replacement funding gives us the money that we're going to need to replace them in today's dollars and today's costs. As I said, we need to update the reserve study. We need to have a current capital improvement plan. That'll tell us what those replacement dollars are going to be. I do believe that we're in a healthy position for going forward for funding projects that at least I'm aware of that will need to be done in the next several years. But the capital improvement plan will help us be even more certain that that's the case.
Thank you, Colette. Nicole? Pass. Thank you. Marty? Pass. Thank you. Doug? Pass. Thank you. Let me shuffle these, and we have another question been submitted by the audience here today. The order for this question will be Nicole, then Doug, then Marty, and then Colette. How do you see current technology? Do you think that current technology has hindered or helped the board make decisions? Nicole.
I'm too young. I know. I don't really think that I have any expertise in this area to answer the question because I'm not really sure what to change.
How do you understand current technology has either helped or hindered the board make decisions? Doug?
And let me support Nicole. I think the question is a little bit ambiguous. It could be open to a lot of interpretations. First of all, I would ask someone to define technology, and in what aspect. Maybe I'll give you a point of reference. Right now, the current systems that are in place that, let's say, run the financial back end, run a lot of the different business aspects of the OPA operation are in dire need of upgrade. All right, and that is a very general statement. Right, I can't give you specifics. I'm not that far down into the weeds. Technology work group is working to look at all of those kinds of things and has come up with a number of recommendations that are getting ready to be presented to the board for consideration. There's areas, especially the financial system, where, and I hope I won't strike too many nerves here, but the timeliness in which the month-end reporting comes out is probably to be improved, maybe is the way to say it. And I know that there are, having talked, not having specific interaction with the system, but talking with the stakeholders, the folks that use the system on a regular basis, there are inadequacies there. There's a lot of manual input. There's a lot of data transfer from one system to another in order to get to those numbers. So those are the kinds of things that, from a technology standpoint, you look at and you say, how can we make that more efficient? Okay, less labor hours, less manual intervention, more interaction and synchronization with other systems, common ground to look at. Those are the kinds of things from a technology perspective that need to be addressed. And there's going to need to be an investment in that. It won't come at a bargain basement price, but an investment like that is a long-term investment. You're making an investment in the long-term business technology and strategy to support that business. So, you know, and again, that's my interpretation. I may not have answered the question right because it's a little ambiguous, but technology is a big part of supporting the operation of the Ocean Mine Association.
Thank you. Marty?
I think it's fair that Nicole stole mine. Nicole thinks she's too young. I know I'm too old. But I have grandchildren that really know this stuff. When they do stuff for me and work with the OPA website stuff, they almost all agree that we need to pray that the chipmunk doesn't die that's running that system. I think we can use some help. And I sure could. I can't wait till the grandkids get the answer to my emails.
Thank you, Marty. Colette?
I'm going to not say I'm too old or too young, but I will say that I'm a dating, and I've been accused of that for years. I really value data-driven decision-making, and I think our technology infrastructure does need. We need to be able to use technology to help us get the information that we need to make better decisions, whether that's financial data or input from members on things, whether it's gathering data on amenity usage. There are all kinds of ways that data could be used. And as a data geek, I'd like to be able to have access.
Thank you. And we'll now offer each candidate 1 minute for response. Nicole, first.
Can't say so much of what the board can, do with technology. What I can tell you is that I know technology. I've built websites. I worked on point of sale systems, membership management systems at multiple gyms, my own business, and I can pretty much figure anything out. So I think maybe I would have a good value of trying to assess what would work well, what wouldn't, and just getting around in different systems. Super quick learner. I've been technology pretty much all my life, so good there.
Thank you, Nicole. Doug?
It's interesting. I think people are aware that one of the initiatives that the technology work group is looking at is taking the connectivity between all the anchor facilities here, this building, golf course, the swim club, the yacht club, and looking at ways to ensure that the connectivity between those buildings is adequate, is reliable, it has enough capacity to handle the transactions, and it's part of that infrastructure that needs to be put in here to allow OPA to run its business operations in an accurate manner. I was actually at the golf course several months ago, and the swipe card was down. It's, can't take cash, we can't do anything, and I'm wondering, okay, yeah, that'll happen every now and then. I wonder how often it happens. And that's one of the things that prompted me to get the group together and say, guys, we really need to look at some level of reliable connectivity, because although I don't think we measured it, I suspect there is some lost revenue there because of those systems, and that's a responsibility that we look at and say, hey, that's the kind of area where we know we can benefit the association from having those kinds of systems in place.
Thank you, Doug. Marty?
What?
Responses to the next question will be Nicole, then Doug, then Colette, and then Marty. And the question is, if you are successful in your candidacy, you will be elected to a 3-year term. What do you think are the top 2 or 3 issues facing the association over your term? Nicole?
A couple things I've discussed already would be the yacht club, the successful of the yacht club, the Northgate Bridge, and all of the small infrastructures, and this project over here at the police station.
Thank you, Nicole. Doug?
Yeah, I don't need to take any notes on this one. Clearly, the code, the operational aspects of the code have to be addressed. You know, we've talked about it long enough. Talked about quality there. We've talked about financial burden there. We talked about how it's not in line with resolutions that say we need to run our businesses, our amenities in business-like fashion. We've talked about it long enough. It's time to really take a look at alternatives, not just in an open but not just doing the same kind of thing like changing the menu, changing the hours. It has to be something that is a little more concrete, that has a little more substance to it. And that is the idea of leasing it out as an amenity. Put a restaurateur in there who understands the business of running a restaurant. And I said this when we were doing the budget planning some time ago. I said, we do not have the core competency to run a restaurant, and we still do not have the core competency to run a restaurant. It's time for us to take a stand. It's time for us to move forward, put some real research into the possibility of leasing that facility out so it doesn't become a continuing burden to us. The second thing I would do in my term is to really focus on that capital improvement plan, because those are the kinds of things as I said earlier, we got the renovations of most of our major facilities out of the way, and we can't rest on our laurels. We need to look at what's coming up and plan accordingly. That capital improvement plan will drive a lot of not only the planning for that spend, but the funding of the reserves in order to do that.
Thank you, Doug. Colette?
The infrastructure needs are a priority that I realize it definitely is going to have to be addressed. And I think a lot of that work is going to be a 3-year process, maybe longer, but at least we need to begin by taking a close look at that capital improvement plan, making sure that we are prioritizing addressing these needs. And the yacht club, is the other issue. We are not restaurateurs. We need to get a professional, whether it's outsourcing it or, putting out a search for a professional restaurateur to be our employee. However we go about it, it needs to be a professional operation. We can't continue to have that be a drain, a financial drain, and we can't continue to put at risk the stability of that operation by continuing to have this argument. Is it going to be open in the winter or closed in the winter? Can we put out contracts? Can we not put out contracts? That argument by itself is creating an instability that's costing us important revenues.
Thank you, Colette. Marty?
I thought there were 4 votes to lease out the yacht club. Hallelujah. All good. Never be an ultimate goal. When I say lease it out, I mean hands off. No Ocean Pines directors with their nose in it telling a Buddy Trawler or somebody or John Fager how to do it, which I've watched them do. Thank you. My first goal, business operations and our amenities. We got to be the biggest idiots in the world. Let's fix the yacht club. I got it. We'll spend $5 million, a new cafeteria on it. But we have more money than ever. We don't know what we're doing. And if you don't believe that, go to the golf course. We're number 3 out of 3. River Run did more revenues last year than we did. They got 700 houses. We got 7,000. Second thing I would do is a conservative-based budget, zero-based budget, the way we're supposed to do it. We're not supposed to be budgeting for stuff that's going to be done in 2020. You're supposed to collect the money you need for next year. That's what the budget is.
Right.
Yeah.
Reserve study. I mean, how did it get this muddled? We finally went out and got a professional reserve study. And then we got our fingers into it. I mean, there were columns in there that the reserve study company just said they'd never seen anything like it. We need the reserve study. It's almost updated now. It's coming on fine. It was only off by $5 million this rate. Long-term capital planning is part of that, and that comes from the reserve study.
Thank you. Each candidate will be offered 1 minute for a response if you would like to do so. Nicole?
Pass.
Pass. Thank you. Doug?
Pass.
Pass. Thank you. Colette?
Pass.
Pass. Marty?
I can finish me out.
Let me shuffle these up. The order for this question will be Colette, followed by Nicole, followed by Marty, followed by Doug. What is your biggest weakness? Wow. Colette?
I guess it must be my street cred, or I wouldn't have gotten that threat last.
Can't hear you.
I said, I guess it must be my street cred, or I wouldn't have gotten that threat last time. Southgate Grill. I guess, I'm not sure. I'm kind of caught with my pants down with that question. I think I have a lot of different things to bring to the board. I'm certainly don't have the years of business experience that, our board is full of business types. I think that's a good thing, but I think our board needs something different as well. And I think what I have to bring is a different perspective, really coming from a professional background where we're highly focused on, ethical issues, conflicts of interest, dual roles, limits to competence. The issue at the Yacht Club speaks loud and clear to that issue of limits to competence. We don't have anybody in our management, anybody on our board who knows how to run a restaurant, who knows how to run a food and beverage catering business, who knows how to run a golf. We need to have those issues front and center. And I guess, maybe being a data geek could be seen as a weakness, that I'm maybe too reliant on data and objective decision making. I look upon that as a strength. And maybe not being a business type could be looked upon as a weakness. I look upon that as a strength. So I think I have some different things to bring. And I think maybe last night I was a little bit too weak with the guy that threatened me and not standing up to him. I was glad my husband was with me and that I could walk away feeling safe, that, I can run for this board, I can serve, and I'm going to be safe as a board member if I'm.
Thank you, Colette. Next is Nicole.
Everyone always tells me that I'm very impatient. That could be a bad thing. It could also be a good thing. I wake up every day with a purpose. I wake up with a list of things to do. I know what I have to get done. And anything I put my energy into, something that I wanted to do, which is doing this as I'm 31 years old, not something that typical 31-year-old want to do. But I have a flexible schedule. I have the time to put into it. I have the energy to put into it, and I have the heart to put into it. I've been here for so long. And I mean, being impatient is something that's really not good when you're standing in line or when you're waiting for somebody else to do it. But when something needs to get done, that's when it kind of plays as a strength.
Thank you, Nicole. Marty?
Smile pretty.
Diplomacy.
Doug?
One word.
Hard act to follow. Actually, I'm going to stick to what I think was the original intent of the question about weaknesses. And I take my ability to putt out of the equation, then I'll list 2 weaknesses. One of them is a firm belief that no matter what the situation, we can reach consensus. I'm very stubborn. Despite what looks like completely opposing viewpoints, I have some level of stubbornness that's associated with the fact that I believe in every situation, consensus can. That's a weakness, but I'm not, and I readily admit it. The other part of it is, I have very thick skin, but I'm not completely dismissive of what people think about me. And I think that's another weakness. Only because I do care when somebody says, you're an idiot, because I want to know why. Not that I'm upset that they said that. I want to know why, because I look at it as a potential opportunity to correct something, take a different perspective. All right, but those are the kinds of things. Those are, if you want to call them weaknesses, yeah, let's call them weaknesses. Those are the kinds of things that make me pause sometime and reflect and make sure that I think through the issue before I sort of move forward. But yeah, those would be my 2 weaknesses. Well, I'm sorry, they're not my only weaknesses.
Thank you, Doug. Each candidate will be offered 1 minute to respond if you would like to. Colette? Pass. Thank you. Nicole? Pass. Marty? Pass. And Doug passes. Thank you. The order for this next question will be Marty, followed by Doug, followed by Nicole, followed by Colette. Do you believe, if elected, you will be a positive force to help the board become more functional?
Say no.
Marty's supposed to say.
I'm ready the question.
I really tempted just to say no, because it's such a silly question. Of course, I would hope so. Everybody knows I can do this right. I don't do it because I like to. I'm a little passionate at times. But, yeah, I think this board's a good board. I mean, I couldn't be any more pleased with it right now. And there's some headbutting going on. I'm not real sure why or what reason. But members of the board I know, with the exception of Doug, I mean, they're all good guys and they're all doing what they think is best for Ocean Pines. And that's what I'll do, and I don't think there'll be a big conflict there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Doug?
I have demonstrated in the past my willingness to listen to both sides. Other members on the board have called me for lack of a better term, the peacemaker. I tend to stay in the middle and listen to both sides of the argument. And that's a trait that I've used in my professional life as well. In problem solving, De Bono would say CAF, consider all factors. That's things that you do because, as much as you may want to disagree initially with somebody, that knee-jerk reaction, you have to get away from that knee-jerk reaction. Really listen to both sides of the argument. Because there could be I'm not presumptuous enough to say that I would know everything about anybody's position on an argument. So one of the things that I try to do to lend harmony to to the board and the overall perspective is to make sure that both sides understand one another. And if I can play arbitrator, I readily accept that role. Those are the kinds of things that I want to bring to bear, especially given with what's going on right now. As I said earlier, we spend a lot of energy on addressing issues where that energy could have been spent on addressing initiatives.
Thank you, Doug. Nicole?
To say yes, of course. It's all hard and have the intensity. I think that giving a more versatile opinions or amount of opinions helps us achieve more by being creative, seeing all sides. Because a lot of times when you come into something with a certain perspective, you come in with one perspective. So seeing it from other perspectives just makes you look at it differently. Positive is kind of word positive is kind of my middle name. Even if something bad happens, I always try to see the positive in it. But I think that us all having this common goal, we I don't have any great data, but I think that I would comply. I don't really have anything else to say. Sorry, I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm used to talking to kindergartners. That's a little bit different for me, and I think I'm better at this than in last forum, but sometimes I get a little tongue-tied, so I appreciate your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Colette?
Well, of course, I'm going to say yes also. And I'm going to say yes from the standpoint of the training that I will bring forward. As I said, I'm not, I have a business. I don't have a strong, I wasn't trained in business. I've been successful despite that training. But what I've been trained to do is to be a moderating, to be a fixer, not a disruptor. And I hope that I can help us return our focus to the qualities that got all of the directors that are currently sitting board elected. Instead of attacking each other and fighting about those qualities, let's get back to what those qualities were, and let's try to get the best out of each other, which of course is what I try to do every day in the work that I do with my clients. One of the things the kids that I work with say to me is, how come you ask so many questions all the time? Well, I ask a lot of questions because that's how you get to the bottom of things. And what my training has prepared me to do is to encourage deep thinking. We can't define problems well. We can't get to our best solutions unless we do that. So, maybe if I get elected, the other board members are going to say the same thing to me. How come you ask so many questions? It's what I'm trained to do and what I think board needs somebody like me to do.
Thank you. Now, each candidate will be offered a 1-minute opportunity for a response if they choose. Marty?
I think the most important thing that I'll bring to the board, we have a young board. When I say young board, I mean, I've got more time serving as a director at Ocean Pines than the sitting board after Dave Stevens combined. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing because I know where the skeletons are buried. I don't want to see a board go through the energy. It will happen. Happens every 6 years. Hey, I got an idea. Let's be a municipality. Another study that's going to go in the waste can. That's what I think is important that I bring is the history. Anybody that's been in my office knows there is not a sheet of paper I've gotten since probably the 90s from Ocean Pines that in a loose leaf binder in my office. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
I would just add the notion of the level-headedness, the desire to try and make the environment, such that it's serving the membership and not self-serve. I think that's part of that continuity to continue to try to provide. No, and not try. I will provide that to the rest of the board. And those are the kinds of things, because getting everybody back on the same page is a paramount importance at this point. And we're not doing what we were elected and assigned to do this association. And that is a very strong desire to get us back on track to provide the kinds of responsibilities that we were assigned.
Thank you. Cole? Pass. Thank you. Colette?
Yeah, I just want to speak to the young board versus old board comment that Marty made. Their history is one thing. I think one of the things that we fall into when we have been doing the same thing for a long time is we look at things from the same perspective here. And I think we do need a fresh perspective. I think we want to make sure that we're not going to be recycling old ideas. We're not going to be repeating past mistakes. I think some fresh ideas and fresh perspective is important.
Thank you. This next question, the order will be Nicole, followed by Colette, then Doug, and then Marty. Define what you consider outsourcing, how it applies to Ocean Pines, and what conditions would you apply to outsourcing. Nicole?
why I brought this up. Outsourcing to me is kind of like delegating. So something that someone else has expertise in, to be able to outsource that duty or that job out to somebody, similar to what Will brought up about the yacht club, which is something that would be my first pick. But if it was better than losing money, it would definitely something that I would vote for. That's basically.
Thank you, Nicole. Colette?
I think one of the things we have to think about with outsourcing is whether or not we're going to share in the profits, which means we're going to share in the costs, and how much control we're going to give over to whoever it is that we're outsourcing to. We need to make sure that whatever the operation is that we're outsourcing preserves the character and the nature of our community and responds to the priorities of the membership. I think some people are a little bit hesitant about outsourcing because we don't want to lose that character. We don't want to lose members' voices in how those operations are run. So I think we need to be careful in looking at that. I think it's not going to be a simple matter to come up with a contract for outsourcing that preserves the level of control that I think our homeowners are going to want if we go that route. I'm certainly in favor of looking at that, and I believe that we can do hard things. So I don't think it's an insurmountable problem, but I think we need to make sure that we don't lose sight of what's important and valuable to homeowners when we go down that road.
Thank you. Doug?
Any effective business operation has to take into consideration the cost of providing the goods and services and the operational aspects of the business. When that analysis is done, look and determine what the best model is. Is it in-house? Is it a hybrid model? Or is it fully outsourced? There are different models to looking at it, and there are different ways to approach how to effectively run a business operation, whether you run it in-house or you use a third party or services firm to do that. What needs to be done is to take a look at the business operations of any one of the amenities and consider, are there any efficiencies that can be gained from us changing our current business model? All right. For example, this is an easy one to pick on. I'm sure everybody could realize it. The yacht club. We currently staff it. We currently manage it. We currently try to run it as a business operation. Right. Now, in the analysis, can we do it any better? Are there other ways to do that? The answer is, of course there are. Discussion needs to start to have, where would the model start? Where would we get that kind of input, that kind of entity to come in and take a look at that operation and see if it is running in a more efficient manner? Because to continue to run that, and I don't want to get hung up on the yacht club. This applies to all of the events, include the golf course. If we don't have the core competency to do that, we owe it to the membership, look at that business model and understand, are there efficiencies in outsourcing? Remember, we're talking about investment and we're talking about labor costs, okay? That comes right out of our pockets in order to do that. We need to make sure that we are doing the most efficient method of running those business operations, and if that includes outsourcing, it must be included in the solution set, must be strongly considered. That evaluation needs to happen, those discussions need to happen, I usually like to use the word courage, to have them, because some people might not agree with it in principle. Practical aspect of that, to make an efficient business operation, has to be considered.
Thank you. Marty?
How would I define outsourcing? Outsourcing for me is giving the keys to the restaurant to an operator for a deal. Negotiated deal is good for us and good for them. But hands off. I mean, if we get involved in the deal, it's dead from the start. I mean, I can't imagine anybody who knows us would get into the deal with that. Especially if they talk to FOSTA. These deals happen, and they happen a lot. I mean, we need somebody with skin in the game. John Fager took over the operations at the Atlantic Hotel. And it wasn't because of money. I mean, people that own the Atlantic Hotel, money wasn't an object. But they got tired of being the only diners there. John took it over, and his wife's running, and it's pretty doggone successful. Sodell just took over that big golf operation up in Rehoboth, Homeowner Association, food and beverage. In a perfect world, I'd like to see a team come in to operate our food and beverage operations and our golf operations. We had that offered as was 3 years ago, but the board never heard about it because the first contact person said it wasn't going to happen. And that was a restaurant operator that would make everybody in the room cry. I mean, and golf operator, our old golf pro out there was involved. Beckelman swings the thing. There were a team of about 10 people wanted to lease our golf operation, our food and beverage operation. The board never heard about it. I only heard about it through my lawyer. We need to lease this stuff out. We're not any good at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Each candidate will be offered 1 minute to respond if they would like to. Nicole? Pass. Colette?
Yes.
Pass. Doug? Pass. Marty? Pass. We have a question here, which actually, from the audience, which actually was asked at the last forum and didn't make it there just due to time constraints. But this will be the last question before your closing statements. And it regards part-time residents being as valued as full-time residents. But I'd like to broaden the question just a little bit and ask each of the candidates to discuss how they will send the sense of value to all residents in Ocean Ponds. The order, I should have announced this first, Colette, then Marty, then Doug, and then Nicole. So, Colette, please.
Could you restate the question again?
Yes, sir.
I still don't know what you're asking.
Well, the sense of the questioner here is that part-time residents are not as valued as full-time. That's the message that part-time homeowners get. Question I would pose is, how can we broaden that to a broader context of how can the board reach all residents here?
Well, I'm going to make a confession. I am a part-time resident. My husband and I are here probably half the time throughout the year. That's one type of part-time residency. There's another type which people spend half of the year elsewhere and half of the year here. And then there are people who are year round. I have to admit there are times that I felt like our needs have not been represented by the board. And when we look back at the board, most of the time the board is populated by residents. So, one of the things that made me feel comfortable about the idea of running for the board this year is that I felt that having the perspective of a part-time resident was probably going to be a good thing, that I'd be able to ask some questions and, pull up some challenges to the traditional thinking that would help represent all of the members. I think having felt a little bit underrepresented makes me more attuned to the fact that I need to listen to all points of view. I need to listen to the snowbird types. I need to listen to the full-time residents, but I have to listen to people like me, of course, as well. So, I think having that representation on the board will be a good thing. I talked earlier about being a data geek. I think we do need to gather data. I think we need to gather from the part-time residents as well as the full-time residents. And we need to look at all those different perspectives when we're thinking about how to best serve the interests of the association as a whole.
Thank you. Marty?
I'm not sure I buy the premise, but I'm pretty sure the majority of Ocean Ponds property owners are still non-resident. And because they're not resident, they're not the committees, not at the group things that happen here during the week, and not getting the ear of directors or getting the ear of manager, and they might get left out a little bit in that case. And I don't know really how you fix that. I've suggested 100 times to get laughed at a perforated return postcard in that quarterly report, because that's really their source of information. I don't know another source, Joe's site, but real information. I just think that quarterly report would be a way to go back and forth. Saturday meetings would help. I hope they don't think that they're being stepchilded by me, because they're not. They're the backbone of the Ocean Ponds. Thanks.
Thank you. Doug?
So when you asked the question, I immediately wrote down two things. Number one, why is there a distinction? I mean, everybody pays their assessment. Right? Everybody is a member of the Ocean Pines Association. Who are we to determine that they're any less valuable if they live here full-time or not? I don't even want to get into that discussion. Everybody should be treated the same with regard to the value of living in Ocean Pines, the use of the amenities, even if it's not going to be year-round. There shouldn't be any distinction. The second thing I wrote down was communication. All right? Number one, do we know there actually is a marginalization of the people that don't live here full-time versus the people that do live here full-time? I don't know, but I'd like to. So here's another opportunity to get out into the community and say, do you feel that there's some level of marginalization if you don't live here full-time? I don't have the answer to that, but I'd love to have that discussion. And if so, then we need to look at how better to communicate with those folks that aren't here full-time so they are aware of the issues, they have some level of input. But to perfectly honest with you, I think, and again, this is intriguing, that is there really that distinction, and is there really that, again, I use the term marginalization between people that live here full-time and people that don't. I'd love to have that conversation, because I don't know that there are issues that can be attributed directly to categorizing those two kinds of folks.
Thank you. Nicole?
The only issue that I brought up and that I've heard of from a part-time resident was having access to board meetings. So my only suggestion is to do some type of virtual board meeting. There's a couple different programs that you can use. You can actually ask questions and stuff as well. So if you aren't actually in the residence or you're not here at this time, you can still access it. Even if you're traveling or whatever, you can still have a say and see what's going on. And then in terms of part-time, I mean, we have email-based, you can go online, you can find out all the new, all the papers are online now, so you can kind of stay in tune with what's going on when you're not here. And I like what Doug said about communication, like if there's something that you feel you're not getting or something that you need, just to let somebody know. Like if I had someone come up and suggest something to me, anything, I wouldn't know whether they're a full-time or part-time person, resident, so would make any difference to me. I think that everyone's the same. One, has a house here, whether they use it sometimes or they get the best of both worlds by coming down here when it's nice and leaving when it's not. Hey, yeah.
Thank you. Now each candidate will be offered 1 minute for a response if you choose. Colette first.
Yeah, I just wanted to build a little bit on what I said earlier. We do have non-resident land that also be considered. We have the full-timers, part-timers, and the non-residents. And we are all the same. What we need to make sure is that when we make decisions that they're being sensitive to the needs of all of these different types of owners and what their needs are in terms of using the amenities and getting the services that they need to be able to use their properties well. And I agree with Doug, communication is vital. Mailings, emails, website, we've kind of ventured into having an OP-run blog. I think, there's some reasons why that hasn't become fully functional. But I think that's something that needs to be looked at, and I'd like to see the Communications Committee be given the power to really delve into that and give us some advice.
Thank you. Marty? Pass. Thank you. Doug?
Yeah, going back to the theme of communication, I think you have this standard active versus passive communication where a lot of times it's passive. I think one of the things we can do to help solve the problem is make more active communication. That is reaching out to everybody and saying, did you know that if you have an issue, or here's another method of communication you might not have considered. We take an active role in soliciting those kinds of things, sort of an engagement program where you say, you know what, if there really is an issue out there, there really is a level of marginalization between full and part-time, and it's a great point, Colette, the renters as well, that I think we engage in such a way that solicit that, get them involved and say, yes, there are other ways that can bring your issues up to the board. Are you aware of that? And I think that's one of our responsibilities. We certainly do that as well.
Thank you. Nicole? Pass. Well, it looks like we're going to bust our time budget by about 60 seconds here today. We're going to run over by about 1 minute. Target was to get you out of here at noon and moving to closing statements. Each candidate will get 3 minutes. And the order will be Doug, then Colette, then Nicole, and then Marty. Well, table order. So, Doug, 3 minutes for your closing statement, sir.
So, again, I want to thank everybody for spending time. Clearly the issues in front of us are important to everybody. We as board members, potential board members, really have to put that into perspective. Thanks again to the candidates as well. As I said in the last forum, and as I said last year as well, I really like to hear the different perspectives of not only candidates but membership as well. It always gives you a good idea of where things are, and I end up learning something. I always look at it as an opportunity to learn. As a sitting board member, my desire was to continue to serve, as a volunteer to the organization, help things forward. I believe in that continuity, and I believe in the kinds of things that would help us get back to a level of stability that we sorely need right now. When you consider casting your vote, consider somebody who's engaged in really wanting to make sure that we run as a board in a more cohesive manner. I've got the experience not only in the professional world, but as a full year under my belt, but a better understanding of some of those interactions that at some point I only thought about, but now that having actually experienced them, I have a better understanding of how they could be resolved forward. If there's any questions you ever have with me, certainly feel free to reach out to me. My email is on the website. You can certainly give me a call because I think the best benefit I could give to the organization is get a better understanding of everybody's perceptions on the issues that are important to them. Reaching out and understanding those kinds of things and bringing that to the board is a responsibility that I take seriously. So, again, please consider that going forward. And if I can answer any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Colette?
Earlier, I talked about having been accused of being uppity, putting my title on my paper. I've also been called a contrarian. That one really took me aback because I've never thought of myself as a contrarian. So I looked the word up in the dictionary. And what I found is a contrarian is the person who takes the opposing view. And I guess it's true, I am a contrarian. I do take the opposing view a certain amount of time, especially when my belief is that the majority doesn't reflect a thorough job of having done our. So I'm going to wear that label proud. What I don't think we want is for our board of directors to be comprised of voting coalitions. We don't want all of our votes to be 7-0. We don't want all of them to be 5-2 or 4-3, split down along the same lines. What I think we want is diversity. Disagreement is good. Disagreement means that our directors are thinking deeply. That means that they're considering all angles of a position or all angles of a question, and they're debating different points of view. We need to have debate on different points of view in order to come to the best solution for the problems that face us. Disagreement means that our board is doing their homework, and that's what we need them to do. We need them to do their homework before they start spending money foolishly, making rash decisions, and moving us away from a zero budget position. I think we need diversity of perspectives on our board. I think we need diversity of skills and training. I think we need a board that has a contrarian, someone who's trained to be a contrarian, who's going to ask all those questions and make sure that we've looked at all the issues thoroughly before we move forward. We also, I think, need somebody who's trained to help settle things down. Right now, things have gotten to a fever pitch, and we're moving away from the work that our board has elected to do. So if you agree with my positions on the issues that we've talked about this morning, and agree that our board does need a trained interim, I ask you to consider voting for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Colette. Nicole?
The biggest weakness question I so said health, by the way. I just saw that. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I'm not your average 31-year-old from the Eastern Shore. From running businesses to owning one, I know the dedication it takes to this position, and I'm willing to exceed expectations in it. From retirement accounts, mutual, stock, I know how to manage money for myself and businesses. I think outside the box, and I bring creative and fresh new ideas to the camp. Where despite my age, I may not have the years of knowledge or maybe even the best answers to your questions, but feel free to talk to me one-on-one. My phone number, I've taken many phone calls, emails, check my email like 8 times a day, so I'll get back to you probably within a few minutes, and be happy to talk to you with any concerns you have. But through this experience, plus my energy and drive to be productive, we can start seeing the changes many so desperately want for our community. So thanks again for taking time out of your day and listening to all of us talk for 2 hours.
Thank you.
You're gonna make noon,
It
folks.
looks like it can.
You're gonna make it.
We got the hook.
Thank you. Election committee, great job. Thank you to all the candidates. And thanks everybody in the room that's planning on voting. Great. I'm just going to make you a promise that I'm going to work in the best interest of the membership. Whether you're a resident, non-resident, doesn't matter. I treat every penny when I'm looking at a budget like it's mine. Over the last 20 years of my involvement, I've saved this association membership a whole lot of money. And I want to keep doing it. I appreciate your vote. Thanks for coming out today.
And this concludes the candidate part of the forum. I'd like to ask our chairman to wrap up comments here today.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming out. I really appreciate it. I want to thank Charlie over there in the corner. Charlie makes this happen as far as people being able to see it. Sorry, background, Mike's today. Anyway, we're trying to work on that. Thanks again to our committee, to our board liaison, and thank you to the 4 candidates. Really appreciate the effort you're putting into your campaigns and being willing to answer questions and help the association members know more about it. The ballots have been mailed. Hopefully you've received them by now. The results of the 2017 election is now in your hands as members of the association. I do encourage you to please read the voting instructions carefully. If you mutilate your ballot or you do a write-in or a bunch of different criteria, those ballots will not be counted. So do read it and be sure and mail those in. The ballots must be returned by August 10th to be included in the counting, which will occur on August 11th, open session, followed by the association annual meeting on August 12th, where results of the election will be announced. So thank you all for being here, and the meeting is now adjourned.
Good morning.